getting coached up on business and life. That's next on StonePark Podcast, Dream, Build, Connect. Welcome once again. I'm David, your host. I got Carlos next to me, which means we have a guest across.
That's right.
Elena, how you doing?
Good. Good to be with you guys.
Good to have you. Elena is a successful entrepreneur, but also an author, a career coach, a podcaster.
Uh-oh.
I mean, she's everything. She's everything.
Barely, but thank you.
No. We are so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a good day. Good to be with you guys here in person. So
Awesome.
Yeah, and just a little note, we did a podcast together. We did your podcast.
Yes.
Our first swap.
Yeah. It was fun. It was very interesting.
It was cool because I now know what other people feel like.
now it's my turn to be on this side.
But does that make sense? Like you I put everything together. I'm like, okay, so you ready to come? And then some people are like, maybe not. I'm like, Carlos, why are they getting cold feet? And then not that I got cold feet, but I felt it. I was like, oh, today's the day we got to do that swap.
Yeah.
But it was crazy fun. And what's cool about Elena, you're so chill. You're so chill. You're very comfortable. You made it a nice environment for us to be open.
Very
so
true.
we gotta do the same for her, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get into it. Elena, tell us a little bit about yourself and your upbringing.
Sure. Oh gosh, the upbringing part. So I'm a person who has a lot of interests, and I can give you the whole corporate spiel, but basically I'm just a person who has a lot of interest around talent, around performance in the workplace, performance in sports and life in general. And I like to talk about these things, hence I have a podcast. I do this work with corporations, individuals, and so on. And I write about these things. I think I started a blog many, many years ago before blogs were even cool. So I've always been really a fan of just putting my thoughts on paper and getting it out there. So that's a little bit about me.
And what about the entrepreneurial journey? Because there was a specific video that I watched of yours where you broke everything down in numbers. And we love symbols, we love numbers, there's a reason for everything. And that's what was so captivating, was that you were just breaking it down and you were actually talking to me.
That was on the TED. The TED one.
So tell me the number 17, because you're going to like this. The number 17, what does it mean to you?
So number 17 is the number of jobs I've had before the age of 25.
Okay.
I've started working since I was 15 and I guess 14 even when I started babysitting. And at 15, my first job was at Subway. And so that was my first job. And since then, I've always worked. Even when I was in school full time, I always had at least a part-time job, 2 part-times, study, fellowship, another part. I've always just been on the go. And it took me so many years, guys, to understand that is just okay. Because everything, through college, people would tell you well, you need to focus and you need to pick that thing that you want to do. And it used to be a huge insecurity of mine, in fact, that I worked so many jobs. So that's a whole story we can get into. But it used to impact me because everybody else, it felt like had everything figured out. For me, I didn't even go, the other number is 6, which is it took me 6 years to get my bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember.
it took, I went into community college, had no idea what I wanted to do, changed my major 5 times. And so 6 years to get my bachelor's, 4 years in a community college, who does that,
Yeah.
And then, so it was it was all fun in the moment, I guess, but also a lot of lack of confidence came from that because I felt like a loser, honestly.
That's what's so inspiring about you and your story. For me, I knew what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to be in real estate and in movies. So sometimes knowing it, I'm ahead of everyone else. But it's harder when you don't know exactly what you want to do, but you have something inside you. So that's where the 17 comes from. It's just this isn't for me.
The way I see it is that it gives you an edge also because the experiences of being around so many different people, different positions, different industries, or whatever it is. And that's one thing that I always I liked about it. You know what I mean? Because I worked in also so many different places.
So we had a joke because every podcast we had, he's like, so I worked here. And I'm like, Carlos, man, every podcast you work somewhere different. He's like, so? And I'm like, and he's proud of it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how many jobs have you had? And he said, 6. I'm like, no way. And I listed like 5, 6 off the top.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, fine, 8. I think he's right up there with you.
Right.
But the way that he swings it is exactly what he said. He's like, yeah, I've learned so much, and from each job I took something out of it.
Yeah, 100%.
And for you, what's cool, and in that speech, it's almost like there was something inside you that kept going, that a lot of people would quit, feel defeated, and maybe you did have insecurity, but that's what entrepreneurship.
That's normal.
Yeah,
that's normal.
I
to feel
feel
that
insecure.
way. Yeah,
so
for sure.
so the feelings that you had, valid. But the fact that you just kept on going and going, which leads me to the next question: where do you get it from? Like, were you just born with it? Parents, mentors? What made you?
I think I really have to give credit to parents, and here's why. I've been a reader all my life, and I read so many books from young age, and even now, like, I mean, my dream is to have a library of my own, and there's a lot of advice out there about how to be a successful entrepreneur, or how to live your life, how to find a significant other, whatever it may be. And there's a lot of that out there, but nothing impacts the way you behave more than who's around you and who raised you.
Yeah.
And so for me, and I didn't realize that, by the way, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize the good and the bad that was embedded in me since I was a kid. And only when I was like, that's where that behavior is coming from. And some of it was good, which is like, I'm a go-getter, I'm a hustler, I'm a resilient, and so on. That's because my mom is one of the strongest people I know, right? My father is an entrepreneur. He's always done his own business. Like, so I grew up around that, watching that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, big part of it, I mean, I really have to credit to my mom, because watching her be a certain way made me, like, I mean, she moved countries, you know, she was like much older at that time. Like I moved when I was a kid, so it's much easier for me. And the struggles that she went through, and it was just like, well, we're just going to keep going. That's the next thing, and that's it. And it's just like the idea of keeping going. And even same with my father, whenever business went down or up, okay, on to the next one. And I think observing that was a big part of it. I only realized it later on. But another part of it is also the environment. And so there was a period of my life after high school and kind of in the community college days where I was not with the best crowds, and it was just kind of like, you know, and I felt like it wasn't really my crowd. You know, you feel like you don't fit in. And so from that point on, I made it a point to be around people where I feel good. And so I started, you know, and this is like, you know, by that time I was like mid-20s, and you start to be like, okay, now I kind of know what I like and what I don't like, the energies that I feed off of. And I think that's another big factor, is who's around you. Because if you don't see anybody who's doing things that are exciting to you, or if people are just doing mediocre things, which is fine, but that's not, like, for somebody who always wants more, like, I'm like, I want to be around people who are doing something different.
Yeah.
So I think parents, and also just people that have cultivated around me over the years.
Yeah. I think I mentioned something similar in some other discussion that we had, that see, you learned it when you were young. It took me until a couple years ago that I can't hang with people that I don't feel right. I don't feel this right feeling, like my gut, like something inside me, like my body's telling me or giving me anxiety or something. Like, I just feel that I can't do that anymore, unless it's for business or there's some kind of deal that needs to be had. But just me giving myself, I only want to give it to people that I care about and who I love. And it seems like at a young age, in your 20s, you're thinking, hey, I gotta cut this out. So that's really cool.
That's very true, that whoever you surround yourself with, that's what you would attract, and that's what, you know, you will elevate on that. So if you're like around negative people, you probably like harvest that, and that's where that's going to keep growing. And
then also if you're around people that are just not doing anything, right? It's weird. You want to be around people that are doing things that are a little bit smarter than you, that can actually help you. You don't want to be the one that's teaching everybody, or the smartest one in the room. You just don't want to be that person. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while for you to understand that, but getting it early, that helps. Yeah, that totally helps.
Yeah.
All right. So you have co-founded a couple companies. Tell us about them.
So I've co-founded Bestern. So we are a platform, a performance and well-being platform. So where basically companies can go in and provide benefits to their employees to on different levels of performance in the workplace. And so we did that. This was when I was in Dubai. So I started my business partner and I, Ivan Palomino. I spent 8 years of my life living in Dubai. So that was a big part of my entrepreneurial journey because Dubai is a very welcoming place. It's very easy to start a business there. Sure, it has its costs, but it's very easy to start a business there. It's a very small network. So we had a really good run there in Bestern. We exited the company in December 2022, early 2023, because we both moved away from Dubai. So we just kind of sold off the content that we had and just parted ways at that point. He's now in Switzerland. I'm here. The other company I've started is Bloom Youth. That is my my baby and my passion. So that goes back about 6 years, and this is a platform for young talent. So for young people, particularly serving people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, foster care systems, to provide them career development coaching. So I have 12 mentors that work with me on this because I didn't have that. Hence, I was in a community college for 4 years because I have no idea what I wanted to do. And I think a lot of young people struggle with that today. So we provide we basically provide mentorship and career coaching for different groups. And then the most recent one, after Bestern's journey ended, I kind of went on and kind of just became my own brand. And I went back and forth. I was really big in like personal branding because ultimately like what drove Bestern is our personal brands and the network that we had. And then I moved to the US. Obviously I didn't have the same network. And then I was like, well, let me just do what I know, which is my personal brand. So I started building that brand here. And I've been kind of operating as my own Elena God, which is my brand. But then I was like, I really want to have a company. I cannot scale being on my own. Like I want to go back to having a company and so on. So the most recent one is called Shift, which is along my podcast as well.
Yep.
And that's, again, focusing on performance and well-being for individuals and also in corporations.
I love the name, by the way. Yeah, I love the name. Going back to the partnership that you had, tell us about that. How was it like? Would you do it again, go with a partner, or would you just want to be in control?
Yeah, so that's a great question that I've struggled with for a while. So first of all, let me tell you that when we were parting ways, I think it took me a year to actually be able to tell the story of like why we decided to part ways and so on, because there was so much shame and like you feel like you failed. We had, you know what I mean? Like we built up this brand, this company. We had 11 people working with us, and there was so much shame around like letting go. And part of it, then I spent the next year trying to figure out like, what was it that was like, what can I do better next time? And I think part of it is just business relationships with business partners are hard. I think they're harder than romantic relationships. Maybe equally as hard, but I really think they're harder in some cases. So relationship wise with my business partner now, we complemented each other for sure. Cause I was the face of the company. I was the marketing person. I was like the salesperson, and he was the back end guy. So he did all the digital stuff. He did all the engineering in the back, the app, the development and all of that along with the CTO. And so that was complementing, but ultimately what kind of was some part of the reason is that we just didn't see, after 3.5 years, our visions to what we wanted it to be kind of went different ways. And I think part of it was a maturity level for me. Ivan, my business partner, is older. He's in his 50s. So he had a different level of maturity than I did at that time. I think, and it wasn't his first venture. This was his third one. Frankly speaking, a lot of it was me. I was like, I just don't want to do this thing. I didn't want to really compromise to doing something that I wasn't passionate about. And so the direction was going a little bit backwards. And then we were talking about maybe splitting Bestern and saying like doing Bestern Europe, Bestern US, etc. And then also we just said, you know what, let's just close shop. But part of it, I think, is just learning pains, growing pains, whatever you want to call it. One of the things I've learned is that I don't care much for managing people. I can do it. I'm good at it. I just don't want to.
I hear you.
I don't want to manage people. You know what I mean? So, and that was a lot of it fell on him. And I think that was a part of it, you know? And so that was a big part. And the other part I've learned is that at that time, and I've kind of changed my mind about it now, but at that time I was like, because we were going pitching to investors, like 50 people, like 50 investors over a summer, so over a period of just like a couple of months. And I got tired of trying to explain to people of what we're doing, like trying to convince them of things. And I think that was another turnoff for me at that time. And I was like, I don't really want to grow to this multi-million-dollar company. I just want to do what I want to do. I want to make money. I want to enjoy it. And so I think for me, I just had a personal shift in how I, shift.
Yeah.
A personal shift in how I viewed what I wanted to do with my time. So there was a lot of other lessons in it, but I think it was just, I think a really big part of it is just at that time I was burnt out as well, and I think that was another piece to it. And I was like, I just want to do me for a while.
Yeah.
And now with Shift, I'm back to like, okay, I'm gonna do a company, but now knowing all these things, I know I'm gonna outsource management. I know I'm gonna outsource X, Y, and Z, and I know where my value is added, like where I can add that value versus somebody else.
That's what I was gonna say. Now she gotta wear all the hats,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think what I got out of it was you're young, you're a go-getter, you're making money, and then there's something in you that just says, you mentioned pitching to investors, dancing, I say, right? You're basically dancing. It's very hard to dance when you're not passionate about the thing that you're dancing for. Mm-hmm. And then that's when you're just like, I just don't have it in me. So a lot of people, they'll keep on dancing, but it's not their best dance, not their best move. And for you to realize that, I know now you're stepping back and listening, talking about it. At the time, you're thinking it's a failure, but we always say the failures are how you learn.
For sure.
Right. So now your brand now is much better because of that experience. Let's call it an experience. So that's really what I got out of it. All right. Let's talk about coaching and development. How did you get into that space? How did you know that this is what I want to do?
So through my 17 jobs, but so I've had a lot of jobs, as I mentioned, and after 25, after I finished my master's, I started working in an organization that basically focuses on students. So my first part of my career was around higher education and students and helping international students come to the U.S. and, kind of advising them and their families about the best way forward and so on. And then from there, I was like, not enough. Let me move forward. So then I went to work with executives. So I did executive MBA programs and working with people who are like experienced professionals and were going back to school for whatever career goals they had. And then naturally, I transitioned towards learning and corporations. And so through that journey, what I've noticed, and I've done this globally, by the way, I've done this in 14 different countries. And so I've learned that as people, we struggle with pretty much same things, like as just people, no matter where we're from, etc. With some cultural, in different places, some cultural aspects to it, but from, coaching perspective, pretty similar as human beings. And then, so throughout that, I kind of picked up this skill for listening to people and for asking follow-up questions and asking the right questions and helping and creating a kind of like a safe and comfortable space for them to talk. And now we're like, people tell me a lot of things, like, so I realized I was like, people feel pretty comfortable around me. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And so naturally, through all my different jobs, I've run different mentorship programs, coaching programs that I wasn't a coach myself at that time. I would just organize and structure them. And then through these interactions and through just experience, because people would just come to me for advice, I kind of picked up this coaching aspect, and I was like, well, let me explore it. So then I got certified and so on, and I kind of took it a little bit more professionally, but I never meant to be like a coach. I think it's just through experiences, and because I'm very focused on like career development, performance in a workplace, and I've been doing it for so long that I just I kind of start to see themes around people and where I can definitely add value. And so that's how I kind of fell into it.
That leads me to my next question. What's a common issue that you find in the workplace? With either like a team or individual, what do you see? I
always say like the team is made up of individuals, and usually the any kind of challenges stream from individuals, right? Typically number one, when people come to me with problem A, they actually want to address problem D or F, but they don't really know that's not the first thing. So a lot of people are solving the wrong problem, number one. because it is much easier to solve the problem up top because it's just easier. And so a lot of people, I'll have a consultation with them or a team or a leader, an organization. I'd be like, well, X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, we need to have this training for our team so they can work better together. I'm like, well, what are you trying to solve? And when you start like, well, how is this going to solve it? And when you start drilling down the questions, they're solving the wrong problem. And so that's why a lot of trainings don't work. That's why ROI on training and development is very it's hard to track and so on, because it's just it has its issues, and a lot of it is because we're not solving the right problem. Same with individuals. People come to me about I'm not happy with my manager, or I feel stuck in my career, et cetera, et cetera. By the time we're done with sessions, it's actually something else. It could be something in their personal life. It could be a recent project that impacted them. So it could be a number of other things. Sometimes it is that, but more often than not, it's something else. So I think that's one. Another part is people are complex. We're very, we come with our own personalities, our kind of preferences. We make our own assumptions, and we have all kinds of thoughts and opinions about things and how we perceive information when we're working with others. So I think that's just been an issue forever, as long as we can remember. I think like communications, like I always talk to leaders, and when they request communication sessions, and that's like the most popular request. Like, we need to get better communicating, but we as human beings been alive for how long? We still have troubles communicating, True. So and I think part of it is that individual piece is because we are so caught up into who we are, and it's about us and how we perceive things, that we don't pause and like try to empathize with the other person, try to kind of be empathetic in that way. And the other part is just change. Change sucks. And people are afraid of change. And a lot of times, when you have something going on in your life, it's because you have to change something. Yep. And there's a fear of change. There's, change is hard unless you apply the right strategy. So that's like themes across board that I've seen.
So when you say sometimes the issues could be a personal thing, how far do you go? And are people willing to go there, or do you see resistance?
To open up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a therapist.
Right, of course.
So I'm not a therapist, and I have had situations where I would just pause and I'd be like, I think you need to talk to a therapist. Like I've had several of those. I'm like, I think you need a therapist. I'm not it.
Like it was going really deep into
it. Like I was like, all right.
But that's pretty cool that they did
opened
go
up
deep.
because, like you said, they felt very comfortable with you.
And you're finding some type of issue. You're finding that it's something else, not the workspace. So I think that is cool.
Yeah, I mean, but I do stop, and I think there's a fine line, right, between being like, between a career strategist and a therapist and whoever else, like I'm not your friend, you know what I mean? Like I'm not your friend, like I'm not your significant other, because you build a relationship, and so you have to really have those boundaries, and you have to just make sure people stay within like what you're focused on. So like setting expectations, and so there's a lot of pieces that go into like coaching relationship from the get-go. And also, I'm not for everybody. So coaching is just like anything else, like as a business partner, as a personal trainer, like as anything else, you have to find somebody who matches, your energy, right? And I'm not for everybody. I cannot help everybody, obviously. I have a certain audience, certain area of focus on that I know have delivered value in the past. And that's what I focus on. But sometimes I outsource quite often. I'm like, I'm not the best person, but hey, I got somebody in my network who can help you, because my reputation is everything to me. And so that's how I work. I don't promote myself.
Reminds me of like Vanessa saying kind of like, oh, I'll fire my clients. Like if she doesn't feel like she can help them or whatever, she's just not going to, mess with it. And just going to outsource it.
Yeah, because if people are looking for recommendations or referrals and they look at a company and it's still dysfunctional and you have your name and brand on it, you don't want that.
Yeah, but also you can do damage.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? You can give bad advice. Like my and that's why I'm very careful. I don't really promote myself as a coach. Like I think like I do talent development and so on. Like I don't think I really promote myself as a coach. You'll never see anything me like, I'm a career coach, hire me type thing. I don't do that because it comes through like conversations and things like that. I'm like, if I can help you, like, let's do this. I do have the skill set, I can do it. But there are a lot of people, especially post the pandemic, came out and like everybody's a damn coach. And I'm like, who?
That's so true.
Like everybody is a coach, and I'm like, and it's like a 25-year-old that's gonna advise you about leadership development. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and sure, there are gonna be cases, but I'm like, No. Like, what have you done? What have you done? Or people who like, for example, they talk about career change or job search. They've had one job their whole life. Like, you don't know what it's like to be in those shoes. You don't know what it's like to experience.
That's true.
Looking for a job, being in a job. You don't know how to interview. I do recruitment as well. So like, I know the end of the recruitment. So like, Jim's saying, yeah, I can add some value here. But there's a lot of people, and that's why coaching has a bad rap. Because, you know, it's like, you know, it's just, it has a bad rap because of that. And I'm not there for it at all. So hence I don't even like to, you know, promote myself as a coach, because I'm like, it's just something that I do if I can help you, etc. But that's not by any means my main part of like my
like
bread and butter. Yeah.
It.
It's not my bread and butter by any means. Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's go into you being an author, right? So you've written a book. You've done articles for major business sites. I don't know if you were able to check that out.
No.
Blogs, like you said, you were doing blogs before they were
cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hobby or passion, or something that you just kind of fell into?
I have too many thoughts and I need to get them out. I think that's what it is. And I use the word author loosely because I read so much and I have so much respect for like the real authors out there. You know, I just put a bunch of words on, you know, I just kind of created some frameworks. Yvonne and I wrote a book, and then I did one on my own as well, and I'm working on the third one now. But it's like, you know, I just put my thoughts, I put my best strategies and tips. You know what I mean? Does that make me an author? I don't know. Maybe, you know, but it's like compared to like the big names out there that I have so much respect for, I'm like, that's an author. Like that person actually has a flow.
I think it does. You don't have to be the biggest author to be an author. So I think you are. Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to write a book." How many times have you heard someone, "Oh, I'm going to write a book"?
And they don't.
Then write a book.
Yeah.
Then go and write a book.
Done it, you know. So.
And the thing is that it's hard to do that. You know, So the fact that you went out and did it, and I think that you have to have some kind of passion for it. I like how it's almost therapeutic in a way, where you're saying that you have so much in your head. You do a ton of stuff. And just for the listeners, when we did our podcast swap, Elena had this sheet of like almost everything that she has done, but it was only like for the last few years. It wasn't even like your whole life. And I was like, man, I only have a couple things that I could show her, but it just goes to show you that she's on the move.
Yeah,
You're on the.
David was like, "Did you see the list?" And I was like, "What list?" He's like, "Yeah, with the links." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "Man, I sent her just like 2 posts."
It's true though, and it's funny that you say you're not a coach, right? But you're coaching me up on podcasts.
Oh yes,
right? Didn't you feel that when we were on her?
Yes.
Right. So it's and I'm sure, I'm not saying that in your head you're like, "Oh, look at these rookies," but I'm sure that you like your mind. You just work in your mind. You know where we're at as far as like our talent, right, goes, and then. But you also know where we're at as far as our podcast. You're like, okay, I could see where this needs a little work or improving. I know you don't have to say it, but I feel it, and that's what's so cool about you. You're like so nice about it. On that list, she had a couple of the speeches that you did. You're actually really good at that as well. So if you had to pick one, right, whether you write to an audience or you give a speech, which one would you pick?
I'd pick a speech. I love an audience. I love a live audience. Like, you feed off of it. It's a terrifying experience every time. Like, I just spoke 2 weeks ago in front of my colleagues at ATD Global, which is like a big talent development, like a global talent development, which was like people that are like way smarter than me, and I'm telling them about some topic, and I'm like, oh my God, but I love it. I love it. I like to be in front of an audience. I love the energy of the room. It's such a challenge for me, and I love it.
I totally see it in you though. Like, you feel comfortable, confident, and you know your stuff.
You know, being like a performer, also like in music, I remember my first performance, maybe like your first speech, it was nerve-wracking.
Well, hold on. He's a battle rapper. So sometimes, like, I've seen videos where it looks it's like a hostile environment.
Yeah.
So at least you're on the stage and you got lights and you can. He's like on the floor, and then the person he's battling has like some big guy like just looking at, just like, what are you gonna say about my guy?
Yeah, no, it could be intimidating. No, but what I was trying to say is, when you got your crowd right and you got your audience, and you're like speaking to them. I remember the first tip they gave me is like, don't look at them. Just look straight ahead. Look at the back of the room. And, you know, but now you could like talk and you're like looking at them and you're getting their feedback, and that gives you energy. And like I could see as a speaker, right, as like, like you feed off that, like you said, and it is like awesome to see people react to what you're saying, and it gives you that feedback. You know what I mean? Do you feel that, like, from your first speech to now? Like, how do you feel?
Yeah. So, fun fact, I used to be really, really, I mean, I'm still shy, like as a person, actually, which is what a lot of people get this wrong about. They think I'm super extroverted, which I am if I need to be, but I actually am very introverted. And so I'm very shy. Like I get like blushed very easily and stuff. It's ridiculous. So when I first started speaking publicly, I used to sweat so much. Then I had to get the the pads that's like under your armpits. I'm sorry, this is gross, but this is so true. Like I had to get these pads so that I don't sweat through these suits. And then I started to like pay attention to like the kind of quality material that I get and stuff like that. So that was a learning curve. But I was so nervous. And if I had something in my hands, my hand would be shaking. So like, don't give me a piece of paper to hold. Like that's my worst nightmare. Because then I'm just like,
it'd be so obvious.
Yeah. So and I speak with my hands in general. So like I need to have my hands free. That makes me feel comfortable. And so, but when I was in school, I used to be terrified. Like, do not call on me. And like, I mean it. Like, if I can publicly speak, anybody can publicly speak. I wish I knew somebody from my high school. I never kept in touch with anybody, but I wish I knew somebody who was in my class, and they would totally be like, she was a disaster. Like, I would just be like, so it definitely came through just a lot of experience. Like, just do it, and just like, nobody cares, honestly.
Yeah, and that's funny that you picked that over the writing, because I was 50-50. I was like, I think she's gonna pick the writing, but you're good at both.
I'm better at speaking. My thoughts, over the years I've learned, which is why like even in my business, I'm not a person who can strategize by herself. Like I can't just sit there and be like, like I need to think out loud. So I do this a lot. With my partner, with friends, with colleagues, like in the field and stuff. I need to think out loud. I get the best ideas and the best thought when I speak out, like when I think out loud. So, and same thing with my speeches. As much as I prepare, I always leave room for like the winging part of it, because it always works better for me. Even podcasting, when I first started podcasting, I used to be scripted, and I used to be like, these are the questions I'm going to ask. Now I'm like, listen, I'm just gonna have a conversation. Like I want to get to know you. I want to be genuinely curious, and that's it. I'm really bad scripted.
It shows with your podcast. You're very fluid, and like I told Carlos, I don't know if I like the swap. I know it's needed, but I felt like it was just kind of honest conversation, and the way that you were asking things was kind of like casual. Even though you knew what you were going to ask, you're just on point. So I agree with that. So did the podcast help you with the speeches?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is the best professional development thing I have ever done, is my podcasting. I always tell people, like, it's such a personal, like personally professional, like podcasting is a game changer for me on so many levels. I've been doing it for close to 4 years. I've been doing my own podcast. I've been on many podcasts. The experience you get having conversations, asking the right questions, being a better listener. I used to be a horrible listener. I still am sometimes. That's what my partner, he was like, I don't know how you interview people. He's like, you cannot shut up when I'm trying to talk. I'm like, I'm just saying, like I have things to say to you. But anyway, I'm actually a better listener, which is a lesson as well, because I'm a better listener to my podcast guests than I am to people in my life. And so that was a big realization. I was like, oh my God, it's like, I'm not giving the same to the people I love. I give it to strangers. And, so that was a big like aha moment. So now I apply the same skills, because I was like, I can do it. And then so when somebody tells me like, you're not a good listener, like my partner tells me all the time. And I'm like, yes, I am. And anyway, so it was a big realization. I was like, oh. So I try to apply to both now. But that was a big part of it. Another part of it is the best networking tool I have come across, and didn't mean to make it that way, by the way. It was just like, hey, let's create some content, learn some things. Best networking tool. You really, meet amazing people like you guys, obviously, and so many others that I interview. So it's it's fun. I always tell everybody to start it for the learning experience of just being able to talk and ask questions and listen.
So when did you know that you wanted to do podcasting? You said 4 years ago, but when was the moment where you're like, you know what, I'm going to just try this out?
So at that time, my business partner and I were developing video content for our app. And so I was already creating a lot of, I was already on camera. I was creating a lot of content. I mean, I think we did I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of like clips of like for the app and stuff like that. So, and then we would kind of record our conversations and kind of use as a content. And he was like, he's like, because he didn't care much for it at that time. Now he's a little bit more into it with his own business. But at that time, he was like, you know what, you should interview other people. He was like, we can create some really great content out of it. So it was really like his idea to kind of say like, you should like do this podcast because you already talked to so many people. Like we can get some great content. So it started off as a marketing strategy, a content creation for the business that we were doing, and just to connect with people and get our work out there. And then it just transformed to just being like my favorite thing. And I say it all the time, and people are sick and tired of me saying it, but I'm like, I love it. I think it's the best thing that I've ever done. Like, literally, it's the best thing I've ever done. Like, looking at everything that I've done, like, it is my favorite thing to do. I just love it.
Yeah.
There were a couple episodes that I watched, older episodes. There was a gentleman that he was older. He made a lot of money with like the gambling. Like he did like PayPal for gambling. Do you remember that one that you did? And he went to jail. Then he got out. He moved to Malibu. And he started playing.
Yes.
He started playing like with like known stars. Like he just had he had an interesting life. And I was like, man, you really got a good one there. And then there was another one. I think he is your personal trainer. I don't want to mess that up, but he was kind of like the guest that we had, Vanessa, who has a spa that she only takes clients that are ready.
Are serious,
that are going to represent the brand, because anyone leaving that spa and they're saying your brand's name, if they don't look right, you're not going to, it doesn't make sense. So the same thing for your guest. He just said it. He was like, listen, I got to tell him the truth. I don't, I could tell when you're eating wrong. I could tell when you haven't gone, you're not fooling me, you're fooling yourself. So that was a good one that I watched, and I get a lot of tips from, because you have kind of the same format as us. You're dealing with entrepreneurs, you're dealing with go-getters, but different fields. Mm-hmm. And your network, like you said, you built it,
mm-hmm.
And I think it's maybe easier for you because you're out there and you're like, hey, I got a podcast. You want to come on next week? And they're like, sure. And then once you do a podcast with someone, you feel connected, I would say, forever, right? It's like you just look them in the eye and just like, yep, what's up? And then if it goes well, you do it again. And maybe they have other people that would want to come on. And it's just, it's been a blessing for us. Yeah. It's been something that we talked about for so long. And just like every entrepreneur, you got 1,000 things going on. You're trying to pick which one to do. And I just felt that this one needed to be done. Kind of the same reasons.
It took us about a year before we did our first episode. We talked about it for like about a year. We just talked about it.
And that's the thing. You gotta take that first step, even though you claim to be an entrepreneur, right? There's still hesitation. There's still anxiety. There's still fear. You're like, do I have the time? And you just got to go and do it. It's just kind of like your first project. You just got to do it. Just because you might have grown, done this company or made this type of money doesn't mean that, you got to start somewhere. So for us, it was that. And I wanted it to be so good. And he was like, dude, man, you just got to, got to do it. Come on, what's going on? So it was more me than him. All right. So I talked about your personal trainer. Leads me to the next question. I do follow you on social media. You had a picture of yourself, and basically it was you completing a triathlon.
A sprint triathlon, which is like a faster, shorter version of a
so
triathlon.
tell us about that, because I'm not doing any athlons, so tell us about it.
So I like to torture myself from time to time physically. So I like to give myself challenges to look forward to. I refuse to be a person who, just because I'm 37 now, so like just because I'm a certain age, I shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. And I think age is just a number. So, and I have, I've heard people say this, and I was like, I don't want to, like, people, there'll be like, 40 or about 40, like, oh, those days are behind me. So I never wanted to be that person. I'm like, no, like, like my body allows me to do it, I'm going to keep doing it. So I always create these challenges for myself. And so sprint triathlon was that. The next one I'm doing with my partner and a couple of friends is Spartan, which is here in DC, and I might convince you guys to do it with us. It's a Spartan. Come on, you have to.
Man.
We'll talk about it after. We'll talk about it after. You can do it. No, we'll prep you. So it's just something to look forward to. It's a challenge to challenge your body, to challenge your mind. And it has so many benefits I can spend hours on in terms of how it translates into the work that I do, into entrepreneurship, into my relationship, into just who I am as my energy levels and so on. So, but yeah, it's just a challenge. I think it's important. And
What was the toughest part? The swimming, the water, what?
Yeah, so I swimming was my best one because I used to swim in school. So I grew up swimming. My mom was a swim coach growing up. She was a master of sports in swimming. So I grew up swimming, both my brother and I. So that was the easy part. Except the water was very cold. That was probably, I did not expect, it was like 70 degrees or something like that. And it's pretty cold for a pool.
Yeah,
So
that is.
so it's pretty cold. So but I think it was just, it wasn't, every part had its hard moments. It was like the second, so there was like different levels to it, like different, like how to say it, not to go into detail, but basically there was different parts to the triathlon. So you swim, you bike, you run, and in the bike there were 4 circles that you go around, basically like four times. And there was the second time was really hard. I don't know why. The first one was like, I don't know what to expect, I'm just having fun, and I was like, oh my god, there's that hill, I have to see that hill again, I have to do it 3 more times. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so the second time was like really hard. I was struggling. I was like up the hill in Reston, if you guys know, it's like all hilly. So that was hard. And then the first K, or the first mile, I guess I should say, in the 5K, which is 3 miles, was hard as well. So it's always like those beginning pieces that were hard, but then you kind of just like, okay, because you don't know what to expect, or maybe you do, and then you're like, oh crap, I have to like go up this hill again. And the run was also like hilly, so but a lot of fun.
What's the prep the night before, or like what's the meal on that morning, or how do you prep that?
Yeah, good question. So I don't, I didn't really prep. I just, because I've always been really active all my life, so I didn't really like need to prep. I swim regularly, I run regularly, and I bike regularly. So like I didn't really need to prep that much. But what was scary to me is that a week before I actually quit caffeine, because I'm doing this detox and etc. Because whatever, it's a whole other story. So I quit coffee and caffeine a week before. And so I was a little bit nervous about that. And I'm sorry, I'm lying. It was like 3 days before. And then I had to wake up at like 5 and do this like, sprint triathlon. So, but I did it. So that was the only kind of nervous thing that I had. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have like a withdrawal headache because I'm a caffeine addict, ex-caffeine addict now. I feel like it's a month later or so I feel much better now. But
that's crazy.
Yeah,
good for you.
Letting go a little bit of caffeine.
Very cool. So when you're working with your clients, do you use this kind of motivation to inspire them? Like, do you want them to be healthy as well? Here, like in their mind and also in their body? Is that important?
Yeah, no, absolutely important. In the corporate world, there's a lot of, I'll give you an example, a ton of reports. I nerd out on reports. So every year, whether it's McKinsey or Gallup or a number of other reports out there that kind of do around workforce development, they come out with a report talking about what do CEOs look for in future employees? Like, what do they look for? And in the past, it was like, yes, you need critical thinking apps, so you still need those today. But so out of the top 10, the kind of the soft skills, if you want to call it, the resilience, the ability to manage change, the ability to lead a team, the ability to like emotional intelligence, those things used to be at the bottom of the list. And every year leading up to like this year, for example, 2023 was the last report, these factors, these characteristics are becoming more and more important. So it's still equally as important to obviously know how to run a business and have that business acumen, but it's becoming even more important to know how to manage change, because so much disruption is happening in the workplace, right? How to stay calm and disruptive, how to deal with people and so on. So, and then think about it in fitness, right? In fitness, they talk about like, well, we want to build resilience in our team. You can't do that unless you throw a person in the fire and then they build resilience. You can't teach resilience. Like I always say, like you can't teach productivity, you can't teach time management. I can give you tools and resources that might help you, but ultimately what you need to work on is your mindset. That's where it is. When you're managing change, it's your mindset. When you're leading a team and you have to deal with different personalities, if you're not calm, cool, and collected and really present there because you left all your garbage at home or at the gym, wherever it is, you're going to bring that. And then you're not leading by example anymore. And by all means, it's not 100% of the time. I'll lose my stuff all the time as well. But I mean, like 85% of the time, you should be on your like top performance as a leader. So So this is what I apply, and this is actually the whole idea behind Shift is like we're focusing so much time and energy and money. There's billions of dollars, guys. Like $345 billion every year is spent on learning and development, which includes like hard skills training, soft skills training. Very little ROI comes out of it. That's because we're solving the wrong problem, right? And so the problem is actually the individual piece, and it's like you got to fix that. Like you have to work on it. And so the things I focus on is the physical well-being, right, the mental mindset, the social, the connection, the community, the joy, the love you need to have in your life, the significant others, the kids, whatever, family, whatever it is. Then there's nutrition piece, which is very important because there's a huge study that comes out year after year about gut health, gut mind, body gut, what is it called, the gut mind gut brain connection. Forget the actual term, but so there's a lot of studies around how our gut impacts our mood, our focus, our etc., which is one of the reasons I also quit caffeine because it was impacting me in a negative way and so on. And I'm more energetic now than I ever was before. So, and then the final piece is the actual like career goals, business goals. And so fitness, the final thing I'll mention here is fitness gives you that. When you go to the gym and you do something really hard, and tons of people, this is by no means my idea, a lot of people talk about these things, because when you practice it, you're like, wow, like when you kill yourself at the gym and you like really go hard or do yourself a challenge, do you know how rewarding it is to finish a sprint triathlon, even if you don't finish in the first 100? You finish and you're like, I did that. So then no matter what I do, whenever what crap my clients give me the next week or whatever it is, it puts everything in perspective. You're like you're just calmer. You're more like, you're just there, because you already did something hard. And if you do that every day, and all the endorphins, and I mean, I can go on for hours, so I'll stop here, but all the chemicals that go into your body, the feel good, that, you know what I mean? The natural energy that we have within our bodies. So absolutely, I apply this with my clients.
Yeah. And then also you posting it, not posting it like, ha, 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 I did this. You posted it, I saw it, and I had a different type of respect for you because not everyone can do that. And that's inspirational. It just kind of, it's another feather in your cap. It just.
Yeah, because it's something that you don't have to do and you chose to do it. You know what
Correct.
I mean? To put yourself through that and completing it. Yeah.
Completing it. And then also in the type of work that you do, you're backing it up. If that makes sense. I know you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself, but it just works with your business.
Yeah,
like, hey, this is what I did. I'll tell you right now, that water was cold, right? I'll tell you right now, when I saw that hill, I didn't want to do the second lap, So you have the questioning in your mind of like, oh crap, what am I doing? Just like everyone. The difference is that you push through it. So, yeah. And that, I think that's what the skills that you're trying to give the businesses or the leaders, trying to give those skills so that they can apply it to actual business. And that makes sense.
Yeah, and the mind is like a muscle, right? So like the brain is a muscle. So the more you train it, and when you're building resilience and fitness, or just doing things that are hard, doing things that you don't want to do, like swim in 70-degree water on a Sunday at 6 a.m., do you know what I'm saying? Then it's like when the next hard thing at work comes about, you're like, I can do it. It's hard to explain. Like, I wish, like, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I'm sure like there are studies that basically show you how your brain is after you go through resilience, and then how you adapt to challenges in a workplace the next week, for example. I'm sure there are studies around that, like how you, like your, whatever it is happens in your brain, because it's like you really feel it. Like everything, it just seems slightly easier and if you do it continuously, then you're training a muscle, like going to the gym. You're training your body muscle, you're training your brain, same thing. And that's the best way to build resilience. Otherwise, it's like, I get this all the time. Like I just send you a video about resilience. I can't teach you resilience.
So like you said, you can't teach resilience. So it's the experience.
Exactly.
And yeah. And it has to be part of your life. So I'll go back to one of your podcast episodes with the trainer, eating clean. You can eat clean for a week, right? And feel great about yourself. But if you're not eating clean for making it a part of your life, you're kind of wasting time, right? You have to make it. I don't know if it was on your podcast or I heard it somewhere else, that there's no such thing as a diet. It's just the way you eat,
it's
right?
Your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's your lifestyle. So you shouldn't say I'm on a diet, right? Because the diet is what, there's a beginning and an end. So what happens at the end? Are you going to go back to, the stuff that you've been doing? But eating clean, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with exercising. It's just disciplining the mind and making it an everyday thing. You know, so makes sense. We are girl dads, right? So you have 2 daughters. Youngest is 8. I have 1 daughter. She is going to be 4 in a couple months. Love your energy, the fact that you're a go-getter, you're doing everything. What advice do you have for us as fathers? What could you tell us that we can instill in our daughters?
Simply put, be there, physically present for your daughters. And I'll tell you a story. So I moved to the U.S. when I was 13. My parents got divorced. I moved here. So my brother and my brother, and who's older than me, he's here now. So I have him back in my life after like 20 something years of being apart. Wow. Yeah. So and my father's still in Russia, but I moved here with my mom, and I lost father figures, which again, I didn't realize how important it is until like in my early 30s. Okay, so we had a huge family, a very patriarchal family, so very strong male figures in my life throughout my upbringing up to 13, which was a blessing. And then I come here, new culture, new everything, and then I moved here when I was 13. So as you guys know, at 13, a lot of changes happen with women, right? So like it was a really tough time to begin with. And so a lot of insecurities arose from that. Then just being a foreigner, not speaking English, so on, so on, so on. So, and not having a father figure there impacted my confidence on more levels than one. And I always go back to that because confidence, I think, for girls especially is important. Like a humble, I'm not talking, like a humble confidence is very, very important. And I think, and so what happened was when I was here for a while and I would go back and visit my dad, and like later, like in my 20s, I would go back before that, obviously, but it was in my 20s. I remember I would go back and I would sit there around my father and my brother and being physically in their presence. And then I would leave to go back to the US, and I would have this pride, I would have this confidence, I would have this like, you can't tell me nothing, like I have an army behind me
after seeing
them. And so, and I don't know, I still don't know, I mean, maybe if there's a therapist listening to this, they can probably figure it out, but like I don't know what it says, but what I can tell you is that not having them when I was like my teenage years and in my early 20s, where I felt like I was just kind of lost, and I felt like I was missing that because I grew up with such strong male figures and then they were just gone. I think that really impacted me. So I always say like having a father present, whatever the relationship with the mother of the kids, whether together or not, I think having that father in the same city, like being there and showing up is so, so important. And I think we don't realize it as women, and there's a lot of push right now for like, oh, independence and like do you girl and like all these things, and like, and no, like we need strong men in our lives, you know what I mean? As when you're young, you need strong fathers and brothers and like male figures, but and then also you need a partner when you're older, like no, you don't have to do everything alone. Like I'm the first to say like I need a man, not because I can survive without, absolutely, right? But I need support. I need certain presence. I need that male presence in my life. Like it's important to me. I'm better. Like with my partner, I'm better with him. It's just important. So I think having that presence is really important. Having a strong mother, of course, is also important, but it's just not. It's not a full picture. I don't, like my mother is amazing, but it's just not enough, if that makes sense, so like for like, so that's what I would have to say.
My parents got divorced at I was 4, and my sister was like 13, so same as you. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure she could relate with what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And for me, yeah, I would have, my dad was in my life, but it would have been nice to have my dad in my life, like you said, same city. Mm-hmm. Because there's certain things that you need from your father. Your mom can't do it all. And it's that unit that helps you grow. So I totally get what you're saying.
I could agree with that, man. I think that's very important.
And also, because I haven't met your oldest, your daughter, but I have met your youngest. Yeah. And she's the one. She's great. She's so funny. She gives hugs. She's confident. And that could be all from having both parents, giving her the, and also having all the siblings too. Yeah. She has a bunch of siblings.
But like I could see that confidence things, like what you're saying, because of my oldest have, not to say that she's not as confident, but I could see that, the confidence sometimes is not there. And I've always asked myself, I'm like, man, I wonder if I would have made a little bit more of a difference. And I think it could have been. And it comes from that.
But also what you can get from Elena is that when she went back in her 20s, she came back strong, hungry, confident. So it's never too late.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't have to just wait and see or say, oh, I should have. You could just do it right now, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would have to say, for sure. Like, even just being like, I would give anything. Like, I'm happy my brother's here now, but now, like, I'm 37. Like, I got my things to figure it out. Like, I got all that, but like, it's still important because it's like, you feel like you have like protection. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, you feel this security, and like, and yes, like my mother did all that as well, but it's just different as a girl. This is my experience. Maybe other people listening to this, like, feel differently, but in my experience, and because my father was very strong father, like he was a father, he was a strong father. My brother they're very protective, and that's what I missed. And I'm growing up in that protected space, and then not being that protected here, and then just being like bullied and like all these things, like when I was in school, just being such an outsider and then feeling like a loser. And I think part of it, I would have nice to have that, for me personally, again, to each his own. And I think just for girls in general, I think this whole, like, and I think about it because now I'm trying to start a family right now. So I don't have kids yet, but it's the impact that the society has on girls today. And like, I am so glad I did not grow up with social media. I am so glad I didn't grow up with all these things.
Very true.
I see this in my work with Bloom Youth and like the young women that get impacted, and I'm like, and it's hard to get them out of that. So so I don't know what I'm going to do with my own kid. Like, I'm just going to put them in no iPads, no iPhones. My partner and I will always, he was like, he has 2 kids from his previous marriage, but, and we always talk, and I was like, you really shouldn't use them, you let them use that. But he was like, trust me, you're gonna be giving them an iPad. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I probably will, so he humbles me very quickly on those things.
I love your advice. Your advice was really good.
I have a sweet son, but when he gets on this Nintendo Switch, he's not sweet. And I told her, and it's almost like the guy from Lord of the Rings, Smeagol, is that his name?
Yeah.
When it's like that switch is the ring, and you take that ring off, and he starts looking. I'm like, well, where's my son? So yeah. I mean, like you, I said, I'm not going to do the screen time. It's it's necessary because there's no way that you can get away from it. But you gotta watch out.
Yeah,
it's tough. Dream, build, connect. That's what we do. So you have a dream, you build that dream, and then when the dream is built, you connect with people, connect with the world. What phase are you in? You could be in one or all three or a combo.
Great question. I would say I'm in the build stage. Probably all three, but because I'm building out Shift now, it's like the latest projects. I feel like I'm doing a lot more building than dreaming or connecting, if that makes sense. But I think I'm continuously in all three, frankly speaking, because I'm always building something, I'm always connecting, and I'm always dreaming because I'm doing so many things, and like I get excited about a lot of things, and prioritize accordingly, obviously. But I think it's throughout.
Yeah, you seem like you're always working in your mind, and I when I thought of this question for you, I said it's all three for her. Definitely. It's all three because, and really for all entrepreneurs, we kind of all say it just in different ways, but you're always thinking about the next venture. You're always thinking about who to connect with. You're always hustling to build something up. And yeah, I think all entrepreneurs should have that mindset. It should be all three.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. So knowing more about your story, right? You're it's very inspirational, and I think hearing your businesses and what your businesses actually do, that's even more inspirational because you've kind of applied your passion to help, right? So my passion might be to do real estate in films, right? And I can wiggle it and say, oh, well, I'm helping people with housing and I'm helping people with entertainment. But no, you're really helping. We're so grateful for you to be here and tell your story, your journey, what else do you have going on, or what else would you like to promote? The stage is yours.
Honestly, I mean, I don't want to promote necessarily anything, but what I want to promote, maybe an idea, based on what you just said. You talk about helping, and something I've been thinking a lot about. When I was younger, I was always in volunteer stuff. And when I was doing that, I was doing it I used to think because I wanted to be a good person and volunteer. I used to be like, oh, I just want, I can add this on my college resume, like I volunteered. But looking back, selfishly, I was doing it because of all the different struggles I had. It made me feel better. It made me feel better to give back to others. And I've been volunteering things forever, which is why I have a nonprofit, Bloom Youth, which I spent a lot of time giving back. And now it's not because I need to feel better, now because it's rewarding in different ways, but also I can see I'm truly a believer in service. So if there's an idea I want to promote, is like to be of service to others more. I'll give you an example. I've been volunteering with Veterati, which is a platform for veterans, helping them transition from military life to corporate life. I've been doing it for a couple of years, and I have so many great conversations. And first of all, it's amazing to me how so many people spend 20 years out of the military and they get very little support when they come out of it. So like it's crazy what's happening out there. But when you have conversations with people and you see, just being a soundboard, sometimes I won't even say anything. Like sometimes just ask like a couple of questions and we'll have like an hour conversation, and they walk away feeling like like we're best friends. And I really, really didn't add anything, but just being an ear to another human being, being a lot, creating that space for somebody. And granted, we're all busy, but I think creating space to be of service to others, we could be much better as a society, much better as humans. I think courtesy is trash right now, common courtesy in the world, in my opinion. I think people are more individualistic and selfish than ever before. I think and that's why I always say volunteer, because even if you start volunteering and giving, I'm not saying every day, but once a month for an hour, especially like for kids, right? You might start it like I did, not realizing that it just made me feel better as a human because I was struggling in my own ways. And now there's actually a lot of talks about how like that actually does help you. Like whenever you feel down, go do something for somebody else. So with all the mental health challenges, all the isolation and loneliness we have in the world, you have access to a solution, to a medicine that is free, which is to go volunteer, to give back, to be of service to other people. And that pays forward so much in so many ways. I cannot stress it enough. So that's the idea. I just want people to like be of service to others in whatever way, because I think we just could be better at that.
Yeah, I like that message. And also, would you say, you know how we were talking about working out and how you feel good after you work out? Would you say the same thing after volunteering, or even more?
I think it's more.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's more. There's nothing more rewarding like talking to a veteran, for example, or anybody who like comes to me for, whatever advice they think I can give them. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, whatever, depending on the question. But it is so rewarding because it's like you could have changed that whole person's life and all you had to do is just listen, and I've had people do that to me as well, like, and I'm so thankful for those. And when, and I don't believe in like, I'm too busy, like I'm busy too. Like you make time for things that matter. And I hate it when people say like, I don't have time. Like, okay, like you're not my kind of person, moving on, and so I think it's even more rewarding.
You remind me of my business partner, Mike, that he has that mentality when anyone says, oh, I'm too busy or this and that, he's like, he looks at me and he's just like, nah, they're not understanding, because busy is when you're so busy, you don't think you're busy, right? When people are complaining that they're busy, you're not busy. Not yet. Where can people follow you?
I think if they just Google me, depending on where they hang out at the most. A lot of my there's a song, and my partner was listening to one of my podcasts, and he was like, at the end there's a song and it's called "Just Google Me, Baby."
Yeah,
so like
that's exactly what went in my mind. I was like, she hit us with the Google. Say, man, Google that thing.
There's a song, so not just like as a joke. I'm like, just Google me, baby, But because then you can like find whatever depending what social media you're on.
I'll put all the links in the description. No worries. And if you guys want to follow us, we're at StonePark Podcast everywhere, or you could just Google it. Really, you really could just Google StonePark Podcast.
So funny.
It's true.
That's so good. It's true.
Elena, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Until
guys.
next time, let's dream, build,
Connect.
connect. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.